Welcome to Sunday at the Segal for today, Sunday, May 1st, 2022. I'm your host and moderator, Sarah Day, and I'm so pleased to be here with you all virtually. I have my coffee at hand, and instead of the Segal Center Rugelach today, I've opted for some Queen Amman from La Brioche Dorée Bakery. So I look forward to being in person next time for Sunday at the Segal. We can all nosh on some rugelach, but in the meantime, we're making do. Today, we are exploring the creation of a stunning new immersive musical, an adult rock cabaret called April Fools, getting its English language North American debut right here at the Segal Center. Today, we'll get to go backstage with four key people from the production. Before we begin, the Segal Center is situated on the traditional territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka people. The land was also a diplomatic meeting place with other Iroquoian and Algonquin groups, including the Algonquin Anishinaabe, Atikamekw, and the Huron-Wendat. We acknowledge that we are located on a land that has been the site of human creativity and storytelling for thousands of years. And we are thankful that we are able to create, collaborate, play, and work here in Tiohtià:ke and Muniyang, known as Montreal. If you want to share what neighborhood or city or town you are joining us from, feel free to drop that in the comments. Keren Peles is an Israeli superstar, so big in that country that she was chosen not once but twice as National Singer of the Year. Born in Yavnael in the north in 1979, Keren is a singer, a songwriter, poet, and she also plays the piano. Most successful pop songbirds lead very public lives, sharing their story on stage, cultivating their profiles on social media, sharing their ups and downs with traditional media, and weaving heartbreak, sorrow, and joy into their lyrics. Now, imagine if a figure like Celine Dion, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, or Shania Twain took a moment from their lives that changed everything and decided to perform that story over and over again in a musical. Keren Peles transformed a chapter from her personal story into a pop rock cabaret that would go on to be performed for hundreds of sold out audiences in Israel, leaving the theater goer to puzzle over what was real and what was fiction. The story goes, a woman who has it all, the husband, the kids, the beautiful home, the rock star career, until a man comes into her life. She's married and he's about to be, but still they fall in love. And the heroine follows her heart, but at what cost? Now you have the chance to see Keren's vision come to life at the Segal, where April Fools is getting its English language and North American debut. Here's a little preview from the rehearsal to give you a taste of what you can expect.
It's just that in my fridge now the shelves are always bare. I'm starving for some love, I wanna fly my coconut somewhere exotic.
What do you mean love? The sex of you and
3, 4.
The fireworks, the danger, the adrenaline.
You may not believe me, but this man has given me 5 consecutive orgasms in one night.
Now, of course, originally the production was done in Hebrew. An Israeli Montrealer named Shelley Ben-Shachar has translated the work into English, and writer Akiva Romer Segal adapted that script for audiences on this side of the world. And the original director, Moshe Kepten, is at the helm of this production as well. Our heroine here is Eva, played by actress Eva Foote, and she is joined by 5 elements from her subconscious, the Greek chorus, if you will: doubt, morality, libido, confidence, and poet. The play is daring, sensual, and immersive, and today we'll learn about how it all came together, from translation to choreography to quadruple threats on stage. Let's meet our wonderful panelists today. Moshe Kepten is director of both the original Israeli production and the one at hand. Hello, Moshe. He is artistic director of Habima, the National Theater of Israel, where the original April Fools debuted. He has worked on musicals and TV shows like Eurovision, The Masked Singer, and The Voice. He has also overseen productions of Mamma Mia, Les Miserables, Spring Awakening, and Evita. He is based in Tel Aviv, and today he's in sunny Montreal, where he's wearing a t-shirt today, which is very special. I'm glad we have some warm weather for you, Moshe. It feels like home, or like.
Yes, absolutely.
Kelly Fletcher is the assistant choreographer. She recently worked on Mythic at the Segal, and her work as a dancer and choreographer has brought her to Mamma Mia on Broadway, the U.S. national tour of We Will Rock You, and several productions with Mirvish in Toronto. You might have seen her work at galas, at Just for Laughs, as well as film and TV work like Hairspray, the movie, and Bomb Girls. She's originally from Toronto, now based in Gatineau. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Next up, intimacy coach Luciana Berkeri. She has helped bring a number of Segal productions to life, and now we get to see her front and center. She's done intimacy coaching for Indecent, and she's also been stage manager for Mythic, Prom Queen, Funny Girl, The Secret Annex, just to name a few productions. Luciana is also a playwright, including The Little Prince for Geordie, and she's also written for Urban Tales, and she's a Montrealer born and raised.
Yep.
Welcome, Luciana.
Thank you.
You would have seen choreographer Sean Cheesman's handiwork in Prom Queen, the musical, at the Segal a few seasons back. His most recent work was with the Prince of Egypt in the West End. He was also a judge and choreographer on TV shows So You Think You Can Dance, So You Think You Can Dance Canada, and Dirty Dancing: The Time of Your Life. He has choreographed for big stars like Prince, Janet Jackson, Vanessa Williams, Michael Jackson, Jessie J, Tina Turner, Queen Latifah, Britney Spears. We could keep going, but we'll stop there. He trained at the Alvin Ailey Dance Center, born in Trinidad, raised in Calgary, now based in LA. Welcome, Sean.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for being here today. So for you at home right now, we're going to start our discussion here. If you have any comments or thoughts, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're going to fold them in throughout, and we're going to also bring in questions towards the end. We would love to hear from you. If you want to know about what it is to be a choreographer or an intimacy coach, a director, or more about the show itself. Okay. So I'd like to throw a big general question out there to anybody. What to you makes this particular project, April Fools, so special or so different from the other musicals you've worked on or that we've seen before? Moshe, why don't we start with you?
Wow, so this is absolutely not a regular musical. It's much more of a theatrical, musical, rock cabaret experience. And I think that comparing it to other musicals, I would say working on an original piece is something else than directing Mamma Mia or Les Mis, which is something that had been written, had been directed. We have seen so many other productions of it. So working on an original one, it's a great experience by exploring material. And of course, here in Montreal, for me, as the second production of April Fools, is collaborating with such a great creative team that is bringing its own thoughts about this play. So for me, it's more of, I would say, a third degree in university, because I'm learning every day from my great creative team.
And I assume that also having to translate and adapt it for a new audience adds a whole other layer for you as a director.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm exploring every day this material, and I have to say that for me, getting this material for the second time is very interesting, because I discover new things every day. Even we had the dress rehearsal yesterday. We came out together on thoughts of how should we improve the show for today performance, our first preview. And it's such an interesting experience that it can happen only on theater, that you can create from every day to another, new stuff, new thoughts, bring in new discussions about material. It could happen only on theater. So I'm so happy that I got this experience here in Montreal.
Kelly and Sean, with both of your extensive experience with musicals, I was curious to know how this experience was different or similar to past productions you've worked on. Sean, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think that what's been really new to me is I don't even know how they could have casted this show, because these performers, not only are they actors and singers and dancers, they have to be musicians as well. So what's really interesting for me is putting all those elements together, and also the technical elements of the show. There's really some progressive new things that I've never seen in a musical before. And I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to talk too in detail about it. But that's what's been really interesting to see is the way that they incorporated this new technology into this cabaret.
And we just got a question from Tony about that app. We'll get to that in a moment, but I'd still like to continue our roundtable to just kind of delineate how different this experience has been professionally and the experience you think audiences are going to have. Kelly, how about you?
Yeah, for me, it's just how collaborative this show is, like in terms of taking all the different aspects, like the tech and the girls playing the instruments and the choreography, and even just the set design. It's just so cool bringing all of that together and how we've all had to make adjustments because we'll have an idea in mind and be like, okay, but that won't work with what's happening technically, or the girls can't do that part because they have to play an instrument. So it's just been really cool because you start with an idea and then it just evolves into something else. So it's been pretty exciting.
Cool. And lastly, Luciana, for you, you've stage managed several musicals at the Segal. Here, you're an intimacy coach. How has this experience been different for you? What do you think stands out about the musical?
Well, as it says, as it's marketed, 18 plus. So,
I know when I saw the 18 plus, I thought, oh my gosh, like
yeah. So that's definitely new for me in terms of musicals that we've done that I've been part of, specifically at the Seagull as well. But well, it's a beautiful love story, and there's a lot of sensuality in the show. Without as well giving away anything, but there's been a lot of work done for the two main characters and to sort of really bring their chemistry, which was already there. So we were super lucky. Daniel Murphy and Eva Foot already knew each other and had great chemistry. And so it was really about enhancing that with Moshe and with the actors and with Sean as well. Yeah, look at that.
there they are.
Beautiful. Yeah. So it was really a great experience in terms of just helping tell the story and facets of like the intimate facets of the story with the performers and making them feel safe and comfortable. And all the while, really enhancing the chemistry between them and making it theatrical and making it look believable and authentic. So that was really exciting.
I think for audiences, it's new to see intimacy coach in the credits. So I'm going to come back to you eventually and talk more about what your role is. It's pretty
Sure.
crucial. But we'll turn back to Toby's question. Thank you so much, Toby, for asking this. I've heard that we have to use our cell phones during the performance. How will that work? When Lisa Rubin told me about this, I said, Lisa, like I have to put my phone away. Like I'm addicted to my phone. Why are you making me use my phone? But I understand this is a way to tie us even more deeply into the story. This is quite innovative. Moshe, why don't you take this one? What is the app? What is the phone? Why did you decide to do that?
So I felt that this rock cabaret needs more than just a theatrical experience. So we have explored a new app technique that bring an option for the audience to share what the two leading roles are sharing through the show. So it's like kind of a peep show, I would say. You can just dive into their conversations through the show. So it's more exciting. It's more, I would say, you're not just sitting in a theater and get the entertainment. You just be more active in the show. I wouldn't say more than that because then it would be a spoiler. But I would say that it's not a regular experience of just seeing a play in a theater. It's much more than that.
And I think for those who may still be using their dumb phones or have switched to a dumb phone or don't have a phone, some of that will be enacted on the actual big screen, right? So it's not, if you don't have that, it's not, you're not going to miss out.
You will never miss the information. We took care for everything. All the information is also on screens, but I think that for the audience, it's much more interesting to dive in as our leading characters are.
I feel like there's been a shift in the last couple of years in the media we consume, especially on TV and in film, where we see the text messages pop up between characters. I think of the BBC's version of Sherlock Holmes. To me, when I saw that, it felt cutting edge and realized just how much in our day-to-day we do message a lot, and that's a lot of how we communicate. So you're bringing in a very modern sensibility by doing this app.
So I mean, this one, the iPhones, the Android, is like a black box of our life. We have so many secrets inside. So it's just being very curious to see what's happening between those two fellows, Eva and Daniel. So I think it just brings in more of an emotional involvement, more of an excitement, So it's not only sitting and seeing a play, but also to be very involved with what's happening.
I do want to know though, Moshe, when people first heard that you were incorporating phones, was there skepticism that this would be like taboo to have audiences use their phones during a show?
I think it was very different for old people and young people. The young people really liked it because it's just quite interesting to get into a theater and be requested to keep your phones up. I mean, it's not acceptable to keep the phones in your hands during the show. But I would say that as soon as we started the show, this is the thing that everyone talked about, that they could use the phones during the show. It's not for having phone conversation of yourself or getting any text messages, but just to be a part of the show, just to feel that you are a part of the show. It's just more, I would say, interesting experience for the audience.
I'll put you back in the hot seat again, Moshe, because I am curious about the translation and the adaptation. The original version was in Hebrew. It was set in Tel Aviv. The character that Keren plays is in Israel. Here we're in LA. We have Eva, played by Eva Foote, and Daniel Murphy playing the role of Daniel. So there was adaptations that had to be made. Can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah. First, the credit is for Lisa Rubin, the artistic director of the Segal Center, which found it very universal. I mean, we had a conversation about the play, and she said, I think it could work for North American audience because the story is so universal. And then we started the process by first translating literally the words from Hebrew to English, and then Akiva got into the process and just made it, I mean, in such a wonderful way that I'm, as a director that was involved in the first production, I forgot the Hebrew version of the show. For me, it's like written in English. Even though I did it, and it was about, I think we had 400, 500 performances in Tel Aviv, I almost forgot the Israeli version. So for that, I think that it's the credit is for Lisa, Shelley, and Akiva. They did such a great work with bringing it in to a North American version.
Shelley having done the translation into English, and she's based in Montreal, and then Akiva, who did the adaptations of the little details to seamlessly transition this for a North American audience. Sean, you brought this up earlier. Kelly, you did too. The performers on stage, I don't know if this is the term. Maybe we can give me the credit for this. Quadruple threats. Normally we think of triple threat: acting, singing, dancing. We're just going to add in that everyone has to play an instrument as well. No big deal. Can we talk about the dynamism of the cast here?
Oh, Kelly. I think this must have been the hardest thing to cast, but they found the right people because this cast is so talented, and they're also such wonderful humans as well. It's just there's nothing sexier than talent, and to think that all these women have all this talent, it's a joy to be around. That's all I gotta say about that.
We'll add that it is a female, almost entirely female cast. Daniel Murphy is the only guy in the cast because Eva is our main character, and then she has a Greek chorus, and that's why there's so many ladies in the production. Kelly, what would you like to add? There we go. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing I was so impressed with is a lot of them even came in with like having a specialty with like a certain instrument. But some of them even were like kind of pushed beyond that with like kind of a secondary or even like a third instrument that they had some familiarity with, but they were kind of pushed to learn some new music on an instrument that they were not as
proficient.
So I'm looking for proficient in. But you would never know. They have sold it completely. They sound phenomenal. And the fact that they're doing all of that while not just being able to play an instrument, but you have to be able to sing. And that's like a whole other talent because like sometimes what you're singing is not really in rhythm with what you're playing. So that is just so impressive to see them be able to do that and then add their acting. And sometimes we even have them moving a bit too. So to have a certain style while they're playing. So the fact that they were throwing all of this in just the few short weeks that they had, and they've, oh my God, they're excelling exceptionally.
Can you give me an example of maybe one of the performers, just to give us an idea of what instruments they're playing on top of their role?
Oh, I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is Dominique. I wish we had that one photo that Lisa took that was on social media. There's one point where she has a bass guitar that's like on her because she plays the bass, and then in the same song she has to quickly switch to the violin. So she has a violin like under her neck while holding a bass guitar like strap over her, and then next thing you know she takes that off, and then she's kind of walking and dancing around the stage doing scenes while playing the flute. So you're just like blown away at that kind of talent.
That is Dominique Leblanc, who's playing the role of Doubt, one of the kind of the 5 aspects of Eva's personality that gets to shine through. So what kind of a challenge is that for you as the choreographers, like that you're thinking of the movement and the bodies, but you have to, I don't know if I'm thinking of this the right way, but you know that your performers are also going to have to go and play some music and then come back, and that affects, kind of what they're doing and their pacing, I assume. Sean, is that a challenge for you as a choreographer?
It wasn't so much a challenge for me, but it was definitely a challenge for them. But they just seem to, they're all such pros, and they came here because it's a really short time that we have to put this together, and they came here on a mission, and damn it, they're going to do it. So they just rose to the challenge, and that just makes my job just easy.
If you're just joining us, we are discussing the creation of April Fools, an adult rock cabaret. First preview is in just a couple of hours, and the show is going to run until May 22nd. You can go to segalcenter.org for your tickets. Our wonderful panelists today include Director Moshe Kepten, Kelly Fletcher, Assistant Choreographer, Luciana Berkeri, who is the intimacy coach, and you just heard from Sean Cheesman, who is the choreographer. Luciana, on to you. It is 18 plus. As we saw in that preview clip from rehearsal, the line, "He gave me orgasms all night." This is a sexy show, and there is a love scene. Can you tell me about what an intimacy coach does and what approach you had to take for this particular production?
Well, it first started even before rehearsal started. Obviously, it's my job, which is a fantastic job, is to really download Moshe's vision from his brain in terms of those scenes in particular, in terms of the intimacy scenes. And intimacy scenes can go from a simple kiss to full on, simulated sex scene. Not that I'm saying that's what we've done. I'm not going to say what we've done. But so it was really about talking with Moshe and seeing how what the vision and the approach would be for those scenes, and then talking to the actors individually and sharing that information, and then just talking to the actors very candidly and say, okay, how do you feel about this? And do you have any boundaries? Are there any things that you're not comfortable in doing or trying? And it was really about setting up a structure and parameters that would really feel safe, like a safe workspace. And Moshe was amazing about that. He's very collaborative, and obviously there was in no point was there any imposition of anything. It was a conversation throughout, and it was really about making the actors feel safe and comfortable, and being able to come up with a choreography of those scenes that is repeatable night after night. We also did, before the rehearsal started, we did some video shoot. You saw that there's some videos, there's video in the production. So we also shot some scenes, intimacy scenes. So we started with that, and that set up a good language and basis for us, and we brought that over into the rehearsal process. Yeah.
You were mentioning also the chemistry between Eva and Daniel. Can you tell us about that?
Well, they're friends, and there was an ease right away, which made my job, frankly, quite simple, because we set up some parameters. There were some do's and don'ts, and we were all very respectful of those. And once that was set up, then there was a lot of space to try things, to improvise and to discuss and to try things. And there was an ease, and there was comfort there, and there was trust, which is a big thing. When you set up a really open communication and everybody feels safe, then there's trust to try things. And so that's from the get-go. And there's a lot of humor, because sometimes when you're having to do certain, intimate scenes, it could be quite, it could be weird and whatnot. But then you add jokes and humor, and that's what Daniel's a little bit of a clown, and so is Eva. They're both little clowns, so it was easy for them to just, between the takes and between the, in the bricks and whatnot, to just enjoy each other and be friendly and just be silly. So that was a big part of that, which was great, which really facilitated everything. And the chemistry is there, and like Sean said, they're so talented, and that's sexy. We were working a lot about, okay, so what is sexy? How do I translate? How do I be sexy? How do I act sexy? And frankly, there's very little to do when you're so talented and you're so invested in your character, and it's in the gaze, it's in your it just, the sexiness or whatever that means, the sensuality just really comes out. So, and again, if you have the right partner who you're feeling comfortable with, and to really sort of really be yourself, then it makes it so much easier. So it was a great experience.
And we just saw Eva there and Daniel. If they look familiar, you have seen Eva fall in love on a Segal stage before. She played the girl in Once from a couple seasons back. And Daniel has been in Forever played Plaid, Tony Krivitz, and Lies My Father Told Me. So both two performers familiar to our audiences. Moshe, Luciana there just said about downloading your vision and getting to apply it, that she's kind of doing a little bit of translation there. So I'm curious about how you communicate that as a director. And I'm also curious to know, this is an adaptation, like the original production was very much Keren's, like this was bringing a bit of her life to the stage. So the intimacy we're seeing, the story that we're seeing, is that, did you kind of have to shape it to Eva and Daniel? Like it's a kind of a different love or a different spark?
I think the difference is only by the Israeli audience know the story life, the life story of the of Keren. So you're coming to the theater when you know who Keren Peles is. She's married. She got kids. But since it's a love story, it could work anywhere, everywhere. So we just decide that Eva is a rock star, and she is falling in love with the fireman and photographer, Daniel. She has 2 kids. He has a fiancée, and it's a forbidden love story. So by that, it's universal and it's not different. I would say that for me, working with intimacy coach was quite strange at the beginning, because it's very not popular in Israel. In Israel, the director is everything. And when you want to do something, then you have to direct the actors. But we are at 2022. It's other days, and you have to adjust to what's happening here and around. And I have to say that working with Luciana was so great, just to understand the importance of her being in a rehearsal room, talking with the actors, finding out every single moment that they are comfortable to work professionally on those scenes that we had to create. And for me as a director, it was just great to have another person in the rehearsal room that is collaborating and try to bring my vision into a completion. So working together, all of us, trying to create sexy scenes in a theater was a great experience, and I studied a lot of this process. I have to say, and I want to say one more thing about those sexy scenes. We are not trying to create reality in theater. It has to be a theatrical metaphor that is expressing those sexy scenes, and by that, choreography, blocking, directing, intimacy coach, everything comes together to do something that is just exciting for the audience to see. It's not any kind of imitating the reality life of ourselves. It's not that. It just make an excitement in the venue for the audience for something, yes, that is a bit more edgy. It's not Ibsen, it's not Strindberg, and it's not Mamma Mia. And I feel that we are opening the show tonight for a first preview. I feel that we did our best to achieve that.
I have to say, I'm going to jump in too, is the thing that I love about this musical, and when I compare it to other musicals I've worked on, I think almost every musical I've worked on, you can say it's kind of like this musical, or it reminds me of that musical, or it's a little bit of this. But this is completely original. I have never seen or done anything like this musical. That you can't come in here and go, this reminded me of blah, 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 because there isn't anything out there like it. And that's been really exciting to be a part of.
Sean, let's dig into that a little more deeply. For you as the choreographer, what moment or what element felt like I'm doing something totally different? What was that like for you?
I think it's just, well, one, the intimate scene, but I think it's just it's dealing with what the characters have to bring, and also being part of the comedic part of the script, like really trying to bring some of that stuff to life, where it's not just dance steps, it's also bringing a characterization to the dance steps, and of course working with Moshe, because he's just the nicest man in the world. So yeah, he's going to be hard to get rid of me now, I think.
Yeah.
I will not. You're coming with me to Israel, Sean.
I was just about to say that Sean might be having to bring yourself over to Tel Aviv for sure. Kelly, there was a moment there where you nodded in agreement with Sean. Did you want to elaborate on any of that as in your role as assistant choreographer?
I'm trying to remember what that moment was. Do you recall exactly what he said when I
think we were talking about adding comedy and not just dance steps, which like to me as a non-choreographer, I'm like, what is he talking about? What does that mean? Like to add that?
Yeah. Well, this thing, I don't really want to give anything away either, but it's just, there's a little bit of tongue in cheek in there.
Okay.
Let's just say that. And just the vision that Sean had to create a moment that could otherwise maybe be awkward. He just brought this comedic moment to it that is very unique, I thought. So that was something I thought was very inspiring for Sean.
I'm realizing that there's not just the love story on stage, but it's very clear, like the whole crew, there is an ongoing love story here in terms of like that you guys seem to all be collaborating super, super smoothly. Let's dig down into our themes. So Eva's a rock star, as we said. She has everything's good. She meets this firefighter named Daniel. He's engaged to be married, and they fall in love. They spark an affair. You just referenced, Moshe, you talked about Strindberg, and you talked about Ibsen, and I was wondering if she is kind of an heiress or the next level of Hedda Gabler or Anna Karenina or Juliet in terms of a woman who pursues an out-of-bounds love. I'll throw that open to anybody. Do you see Eva or Keren's role here as kind of an inheritance to this idea that's been around for centuries? A woman who pursues love, forbidden love.
It's a very good question. Even I don't think that it's only men and women. It's just the option for everyone to follow his heart. I mean, to do what you want to do without thinking about what the society, the environment is expecting. I would just say that 2022 brings so many questions about who you are, what you deserve to be, how should you think, how should you create, what will you be. I have to say that talking to my kids, 11 and 15, and seeing them growing up in Israel, 2022, as a father, I'd like them to be whatever they want to be and follow their hearts, and not to think of any big no's of the society. So for me, it's not Nora. It's not just being a woman that wants to go to follow her heart, but it's just to be a human being that wants to fulfill himself and just be and do whatever he wants to do.
It's a big question. Does anybody else want to jump on that? Luciana, do you have any thoughts about whether But about Eva's kind of position in the grand canon of women following their hearts.
Oh boy, wow. Sunday morning early. No. Well, yes to all of what Moshe just said, but it's also very yes, it's universal, and yes, it could be men and women, but this specific story is the point of view of a woman.
That's true.
So that was super interesting to me to see all the inner thoughts and all of the doubt. That's why I love all the different characters: the confidence, the doubt, the libido, and all of that, which is really shows a really well-crafted and well-rounded internal dialogue and all these different facets of what it is to be a woman in a position of you're married, you have children, you have responsibilities, and yet your heart and your blood and everything is just pulsing for this other person, and everything that comes with that, and of course the society's sort of rules and how people see adultery and how people see that kind of stuff. So to me, it was super interesting to make it very just to see that internal dialogue and that conflict and that passion and that and the tension between the two characters and the following your heart and the consequences of that. It's a very human exploration of femininity as well, and so for me it was super exciting. It speaks to me a lot. So, and I think it'll speak to a lot of women for different reasons. Not to say that we're all gonna necessarily see each other fully in Eva, but we'll see definitely parts of us in her, and her different reactions and our different thoughts and our, our decisions and all of that. So yeah.
I'll just say that I absolutely agree, but again, it's not a show only for women, of course.
No.
Yeah, I just have to say that me as a male director, Eva's story is reflecting my own life in so many aspects. So I'm just sure that I'm sure that men and women could enjoy the show in all the aspects that it brings.
I think too that that's something that we can't not talk about, and what really attracted me to the project when it was brought to my attention was I love the music. The music is amazing, and the songs are amazing. Keren is a true artist because she's the songwriters for everything, and it's the music that I actually asked her if she could do a recording of one of the songs so I can use it on So You Think You Can Dance this season, because I love it so much. It's really the music is it's really great music, really great songs.
And I'll just add that if you want to get a taste of, I mean, obviously you're going to come see the show, but if you want a taste of some of Keren's artistry, she's got a YouTube page, and I was scrolling through that and really capturing kind of her, I can't tell what she's saying in Hebrew, but you can get a real sense for the music and her energy and personality on stage. And Sean, that's so interesting. So we're going to have to keep our eyes glued to So You Think You Can Dance to look for that Keren shout out. I'm wondering as well, like the talk. I want to go back to the heroines, the idea of heroines, and we think of Anna Karenina or Hedda Gabler, heroines that emerged from times when women didn't have a lot of options. May not have had careers, or may not, fall out of love with your husband and you can't get divorced. We do live in a world where women have many choices and you can do many things. So why is this forbidden love what do you guys think about this feeling of a woman who's feeling trapped and wants out, even though she's got a lot to be grateful for?
I think we're just also conditioned, no matter where we are on this planet, of men getting to do that and women not, that it seems more scandalous when women follow their heart than when men do. But like, times are changing. And hopefully we're just getting, everybody does. It's never a big deal when one gender does it than the other gender, or when two same-sex people do something of the same nature. So I don't know if I answered that question, but
no, I think you make a good point. Moshe, I'm wondering, like, because you have the perspective of this having been done in Israel, where Keren is the star, and like I said, if you imagine Shania Twain writing a musical about her divorce and her next relationship, or or Adele, well, she writes a lot about her own love
We know all
story.
about
But
that.
if she did a cabaret, it's like in that format. So Moshe, can you just tell us a little bit more about what it was like in Israel to see her put these stories, and how audiences might be judging or questioning Keren's choices in real life and on stage?
I'll say that the media got crazy of that story. I mean, every day after the show, there were hundreds of stories on Instagram, social media, and it was so great because it was Keren Peles. Because Keren, as Keren, believes as an artist that she's writing I would say, her insight, but she never confirms if that's a true story or not. Never. So that became to be such a thing. People were talking about Keren, and of course, after let's say 10, 20, 30 performances, it reflected to many other conversation about just being a woman in that situation. I'll just say something very funny in the shows that we had in the shows in Israel is when you saw couples coming to the show, they were laughing like crazy through the show, but when the show ended, they were standing up, walking out very quiet, very quiet. I mean, you had to think after you get out of the show. I mean, this is the great thing in theater in general, and with this show, that it makes you think. You go out with a lot of questions that you have to deal with yourself, and to find out what you think about what you've just seen in the show. That's what I say. It's not only to entertain; it's much more than that.
And I'll just remind everyone tuning in from home, if you have questions or comments, you can drop that in the comments. I'm going through them now, and Mark had an interesting question, and I think it's a little bit of what you touched on there. Is there a marked difference between Israeli relationships and those in the diaspora, or is it universally adapted for North American audiences? And what I take from that, and thank you, Mark, for that question or comment, is Moshe, from your perspective, this play is set in LA. We've adapted it to North American audiences, but as you're saying, like, there was a big hubbub about this. Wondering if, like, the attitudes maybe towards marriage and commitment or adultery, like, do you think there's a very different view on things in Israel than there are in North America, or are we kind of on the same page?
I don't really know North America. I'm not that familiar with, but I'll just say that questions about marriage and relationship in Israel now is in a very, I would say, at a very center of conversations around. So Keren came with this cabaret just in time to bring focus to these questions. But as for North America, I don't know. Luciana, Kelly, Sean, what do you think?
I think it's pretty universal. But even though, I think I think it's pretty universal.
No, I think to me that the story, yes, no, for sure. I'm not. I don't know really much about how a marriage and adultery and all of that is in Israel, but from what I see from this play, it's definitely feels very North American as well, and I don't think there was any adaptation done there in terms of those feelings, in terms of those, it's really about how our public will come out of that. Let's say the perception and sort of the interpretation of the people who come and see the show and the conversations that they will have after it. But to me, yes, very universal and very, very much real in terms of very real feelings. And then those will spark, conversations about, in North America, we're still, yes, we're in 2022, but we're still, there's still, as Sean said it before, there's still a perception when a woman, has an affair, she's not really well seen compared to a man, and if she's a mother, if there are children involved, we're not very forgiving. I think public opinion is still not very forgiving, and so yeah. So this is it's gonna spark conversations for sure, for sure.
I like to know how generational, because it's like different generations look at this differently. Like, I know my mom would probably be like, this is scandalous, to what my generation is, and then to the two generations after me, how they would look at it, because they see things so differently than us. That's what I think is more different than geographical.
No, very true. Yeah.
When I was speaking with Lisa Rubin, artistic director and assistant director on this production, she said this is controversial, what Eva's character chooses to do. Because a reminder, she is married, she has 2 kids. That, are you risking everything in the pursuit of love, and is it worth it? Gabriella, who helped me, we were talking about the show or before this weekend, she said, following your heart can be messy. And I was like, how much mess can you tolerate in pursuit of love? Are these themes that came up for you folks during the production?
Yeah, it did for me, like, because I have 2 young children, kind of like roughly the same age as the kids that are in the show. And so it was a bit hard. Like, Sean and I were having private conversations in the car, and I was discussing how difficult it was for me at times with the choices Eva was making and how it was hurting other people in her life. And I think that feeling of being trapped, even though we have options, it's like you feel trapped because you're hurting people when you make these choices. And so that either stops you or it doesn't stop you, but no matter what, it's going to provoke feelings and get very messy, as you said. And so in working on the show and just seeing what Eva's going through, and there's just like, I have definitely emotions that arise during certain scenes where I'm just like, this is so hard for me to hear her say this and see her do that. So I think, yeah, everyone will have kind of different feelings, depend on where they are in their life, experiences they've had in their own life. So it'll be very interesting to see what people get from it.
Your comment, Kelly, makes me think of Moshe describing the audience walking in Tel Aviv, all a flutter, all a chatter, walking out of the show, silence, because everyone's processing. We were talking about the universality of marriage and all those things, and Carrie chimed in. Thank you for this thought, Carrie. In Quebec, the French-Canadian culture around official marriage is quite different, but that has nothing to do with fidelity in affairs. Ring or no ring, the issues are the same. It is an excellent point that if a lot of Francophones eschew marriage, but still settle down, buy homes, and have kids together, but as it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have the temptation and the talking about fidelity and infidelity, and all those things. Carrie also had an earlier point that I loved, which is that this is reminding her of another musical. We talked about how we don't contrast this with other musicals, but she's getting vibes from Six, which I think had 6 different very strong female characters, each sharing their own perspectives, female empowerment, girl group kind of vibes. Do you guys agree with that assessment?
Is that the musical about the 6 wives of Henry
VIII?
Thank you. Yes.
I don't think so, because the queens were all telling like kind of their own stories, where in our show it's like all revolving around Eva's story, and the girls are like her subconscious. Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, why don't we talk briefly before we close about that format? Because in musicals, our heroes and heroines don't shy away from telling us how they're feeling. They're constantly singing about it. But here, Eva, has got 5 parts of her personality, her consciousness, confidence, doubt, morality, libido, and poet. Talking with her, dialoguing with her. How do you guys feel about that form of storytelling? I think it's kind of neat. Moshe, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. First, I'll just be more specific. We have 6 voices in her head. We have also music in her head, since she's an artist. I think that this is an opportunity to see deeply how the voices in our heads are making us taking decisions. And well, I mean, we all take decisions in our lives, but what's happening here, it's a process that we just handling in between ourselves. I mean, just something that we don't pay attention to. But when you stop for a second to find out what brought us to take a decision, there are so many voices, so many aspects. And here in this show, it's an opportunity for the audience to see what's happening inside. So many voices, yes, no, maybe, all of that coming together. And she is moving from one step to another, from one situation to another, and writing songs about that. So this is also kind of diving into an artist vision, imagination, how things being created, how songs being developed by all those voices in her head. So um, in this aspect, I think that this show, I mean, I was trying to think about Six. It's really different of Six because it's just maybe it sounds like, but in fact it's very different because, as Kelly said, it's Eva's story and all is around her with the voices in her head, and I love that the audience can get the opportunity to zoom in into the leading character's head, minds, thoughts.
Yeah, and see who she follows, which voice she follows from moment to moment.
Once it's libido, once it's morality, once
Yeah.
it's doubt. So many voices.
Yeah.
Luciana, you're also a playwright. What do you think of that as a technique?
It's great. I mean, playwright. I have trouble saying I feel like an imposter when I say I'm a playwright. I've written a couple of things, but yes, I'm consider myself more of a dramaturg. So I love that. I just love that. I love how it's also showing all the inner thoughts of a character, and so really see the past that she and the decisions that she makes through comedy, through not only comedy, but they do bring that in the foreground sometimes, and also you see the creative process, because as Moshe said, she's a rock star. She's creating this cabaret in front of us, and those voices and those personifications of her thoughts. We see all of that creative process come to life in front of us. So it's very rich. It's actually very rich and full of layers. So it's super interesting to watch, definitely. And you fully get involved. You can't just stay. You really feel like there's a pull. There's a beautiful magnetic and sensual as well pull to the characters in the show.
Before we close, I do want to put that format, that technique, quickly to Kelly and Sean as choreographers. This must be kind of technically interesting for you because you getting to hear from each part of her subconscious allows you to spotlight one person in the cast almost at a time. I'm assuming. I'm not sure if that is the case.
Yeah, Kelly, you want to take this one?
Yeah, it is interesting because depending on what is going on in Eva's head, whatever decision she's making, that character is featured. And so if it is, for instance, her kind of mustering up the confidence to go through with something, then we have confidence kind of coming down stage into the spotlight and moving in a very confident, sensual way. So you just kind of maybe see how she's feeling inside just based on the movements of some of these characters. And like libido, she's pretty raunchy. So everything she's doing is just a bit like, what might be considered improper or not ladylike. She's just going the extreme the other way, just to show that other side of Eva that's just kind of letting all her inhibitions go. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. I'd like to squeeze in one very last question. Thank you, Mark, joining us on Facebook, to Moshe. New songs for this edition. Very quickly, were there new songs entirely created for the Montreal premiere here that compared to the Tel Aviv production?
No new songs, but absolutely new orchestrations. New structures. Everything is being done from the top to this specific production. So no more songs, but very great songs from the original show in Tel Aviv.
Okay, so if you caught the original, one of the 500 sold out performances in Israel, you'll have something new to check out besides the language and the small adaptation. So thank you, Mark, for that question. Before we go, I'd like everyone just to get a little tease for what to expect for the show. Leora, can you roll that for us? What perfect timing. We were just talking about all the 5 elements of her subconscious, and we got to see the visualization of all 5 of them there. Well, that concludes our Sunday at the Segal for today, and I'd like to give a very, very big thank you to our 4 panelists: Moshe Kepten, the director; Kelly Fletcher, assistant choreographer; Luciana Berkeri, the intimacy coach, as well as choreographer Sean Cheesman. It's been such a pleasure to speak with all of you. Thank you for being here and telling us a little bit about the process here. And a very big thank you to Gabriela Saltiel, Leora Friedland, Lisa Rubin, and the team at the Segal Center for their work and bringing us all together today. Thank you at home for taking the time to join us on this lovely sunny Sunday. April Fools, the rock musical cabaret, officially opens this week and runs until May 22nd. You can find out more information and pick up your tickets at segalcenter.org or call 514-739-7944. Moshe, break a leg for this afternoon. First preview in just a couple of hours. Everyone, enjoy the show. I'm Sarah Day, your moderator. Sunday at the Segal will return. Be well and stay safe.
Bye, everybody.